Could there be an upset brewing in Athens? Number 20 Kentucky travels to take on the top-ranked team in all the land, the number 1 ranked Georgia Bulldogs. And this game, guys, might be a little bit more competitive than you think. So, will Kentucky storm into Athens and shock the college football world, shake up everything, or will Georgia continue their dominance and crush and silence all the doubters? Well, that's the question that we're going to answer today. So welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, guys. We're so glad you could join us to break down this huge SEC East matchup on Saturday afternoon. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below, including our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Again, if you want guaranteed winnings, guys, this is the place for you. We are on a 29-11 run against the spread. We're beating out over 80% of the national handicappers like we've been doing each of the last 5 years. If you haven't signed up for these picks yet, we don't know what you're doing. Because if you want to win big with us, if you want to win big, period, this college football season, you sign up over on thegridironexpert.com, and we can guarantee you'll hit gold. So go sign up for those picks today. Check out our Patreon account as well and our mailing address to send us some of your team's gear to be featured in every single Gridiron Expert video, especially once we get back to the new GEHQ here in just a few weeks. So we take a look at this game, guys. This is going to be a fun one. You know, Kentucky is generating a lot of hype entering this game, and rightfully so. The Wildcats destroyed Florida last week, 33-14, with 329 rushing yards, 280 of those coming from Ray Davis. Georgia, many people are looking at them and saying they're not the Georgia that we've seen in years past. They struggled a few weeks ago early on against South Carolina before pulling away in the second half. Then last week, had to pull away in the fourth quarter to survive Auburn on the road, 27-20. Georgia hasn't looked, as many would say, as dominant as they have maybe each of the last 2 years, leading many to believe this could be a game where the Bulldogs get tripped up. They get stunned at home against a Kentucky team that's undefeated, 5-0, and playing some really dang good football. So you take a look at these teams, guys. You take a look at the personnel. We'll start with Kentucky, and it ultimately comes down to Ray Davis. You've heard the name over and over and over again, and you're going to hear it over and over and over again on Saturday. This guy is the key to Kentucky winning or Kentucky losing on Saturday afternoon. He's an absolute beast. 280 rushing yards in a single game. Absolutely torched the Gators last week, the third straight win for Kentucky over Florida. Has 594 yards on the year, 8 touchdowns on the year. Again, 280 of those coming last week. The Wildcats averaging over 170 rushing yards per game. They have to have that to beat Georgia. If Kentucky becomes one-dimensional, if Georgia comes in and shuts down the run or completely shuts down the pass, and Kentucky is a one-man show, whether it's Ray Davis or the Devin Leary show, whatever it is, they're screwed. They're done. They need that balance. What Devin Leary did last week, attempting 19 passes, something like that, didn't really have to do much because Ray Davis was going off. If that happens again, they don't stand a chance. You cannot solely rely on the run. It's a major role, but you can't solely rely. They need that balance. But more than anything, if you have to pick one to get going, it has to be the run game. But you need the balance. Devin Leary's been okay this year. Over 225 passing yards per game. Over 1,100 yards on the year. 10 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. So a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. But balance is going to be the key. You know Kentucky's going to feed Ray Davis early and often, as they should. But Devin Leary has to step up and make a handful of big plays if the Wildcats want to win this game, especially in Athens. Take a look at Georgia. This offense is solid, but they definitely haven't been as good as they've been the last few years under the mailman Stetson Bennett. But what would you expect with a brand new quarterback, right? Carson Beck, I think, has done pretty dang good considering this is his first year as a starter with the Bulldogs. They're averaging over 330 passing yards per game. Beck has nearly 1,500 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, just 2 interceptions. Had a 300-yard passing day last week against Auburn, including throwing the game-winning touchdown pass to Brock Bowers, the best tight end in all the land. The Bulldogs also averaged nearly 150 rushing yards per game for a total of 481 yards per game. Wouldn't say that's an offense that's struggling. I would not say it's an offense that's struggling when you're averaging the 500 yards per game. Yes, albeit against very much inferior opponents. Their toughest tests have been South Carolina and Auburn, and neither of those teams are all that good. Kentucky really will be the toughest test they've seen so far this year, but the Bulldogs are still putting up points. They're still racking up the yards, and that's something that Kentucky's going to have to find a way to slow down. We mentioned Beck. He's been playing solid. Daijun Edwards at running back's been solid, 260 yards, 5 touchdowns, but Brock Bowers is their Ray Davis. Brock Bowers is the difference maker. You're looking for the X factor in these games. It's Ray Davis for Kentucky, and it's Brock Bowers for Georgia, who again had the game-winning touchdown last week against Auburn, and on the year has over 400 reception yards and 3 touchdowns. Kentucky has to find a way to limit him. Make someone else step up. Force Carson Beck to get out of his comfort zone and spread the ball out to other receivers, to other pass catchers, and not rely on his airbag, his cushion, his security blanket and Brock Bowers. You've got to get it out to somebody else. And if you're Kentucky, you got to shut Brock Bowers down and do it early. Take a look at the defense. Kentucky's defense has been pretty stingy so far this year. 221 passing yards per game, 76 rushing yards per game. That's all they're giving up. If you're looking at a Kentucky weakness, it's their secondary, right? If there is one, it's their secondary. And here's why. Listen to this. Here's the thing. They've been pretty good, right? They haven't allowed more than 250 passing yards in a single game this year. The most they allowed was, last week against Florida when Graham Mertz threw for 244. That's really, really good. Really impressive. But they're about to now face the best offense they've seen all year long. They're about to face the best quarterback they've seen all year long. So those stats are good, but maybe slightly misleading. Maybe just a tad. So this is the first really true test for Kentucky defensively. They're going to face a really good quarterback here in Carson Beck. They're going to face him in between the hedges. They're going to face him in his house. That's not an easy task for this defense. But Kentucky has played well. 14 sacks on the year. They have forced 9 turnovers. That's what they're going to have to do to win this game. Because if they can force Carson Beck to win the game through the air, if Kentucky's rushing defense plays like they have all year long, and they limit Daijun Edwards, and they limit this Georgia rushing attack and say, Carson Beck, beat us. You're on your own, kid. All against us. You have to do it all on your own. That's what Kentucky wants. Because if they can do that, make Georgia one-dimensional, and then create pressure like they have against all the other quarterbacks they played this year. Create pressure against him and force him into it. Just one costly interception. Kentucky's going to be looking really good. They're going to be looking really good. So that's what they've got to do defensively. You take a look at Georgia. A bit of a concern for the Bulldogs, right? This defense is still very, very good, as you would expect, under Kirby Smart. But they're not, at least what we've seen so far, as good as they've been the last few years. Again, that's what happens when you have so much turnover from elite teams. This team, guys, is only giving up 287 total yards per game, 174 through the air, 113 on the ground. But that number, that 113, isn't super high, but it's uncharacteristic. Georgia is typically the team that's only giving up 70 rushing yards per game, 80 rushing yards per game on average, especially at this point in the year. And yet here they are giving up well over 100, including 219 last week against Auburn. Auburn has no quarterback. Auburn's passing game is absolutely atrocious. Everybody knew Auburn was going to run the ball. They did so for over 40 times last week, and Georgia could not stop it, giving up 219 rushing yards on the day, 5.1 yards per carry. If you're Georgia, that's concerning. That's concerning that you could not stop Auburn's rushing attack, especially when you knew that's exactly what they were going to do almost every single play. This Kentucky offensive line, guys, is really, really good. They've only given up 4 sacks this year. In comparison, Georgia's has done the same. Georgia's offensive line very solid too. But the Wildcats are going to protect their quarterback, Devin Leary, better than any quarterback on the roster for Auburn. So the passing attack is going to be better than Auburn's. And they're creating holes for Ray Davis. They're creating holes for the run game, which is a bit of a concern if Georgia hasn't fixed that in the span of this week. They've got to find a way, guys, to step up, shut down the run, and force Devin Leary to win through the air. Kind of similar key that we just said for Kentucky. Force that quarterback to win the game through the air. Take away his strength. And the strength for Kentucky right now is the run game. We say Kentucky needs to stop Georgia, not because the run game is necessarily their strength, but because they've got a young QB who really hasn't been in this position before. The pressure was on him last week against Auburn, and he delivered. Can he do it 2 times in a row? That's what I want to know. That's the question. So major concerns for both teams on both sides of the ball, which is why this game is very, very intriguing. Why many think this could be the opportunity for Georgia to be ripe for an upset, to see Kentucky shock the college football world and shake up the SEC race and the playoff race. That is an opportunity, no doubt about it, but it ain't going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. This game, I think, is closer than expected. Last year, Kentucky played Georgia closer than expected. It was like a 10-point game in Lexington, 16-6. It was impressive. It was a good outing for the Wildcats. I can see a similar type of outing this time around. A tough out for the Georgia Bulldogs, a closer game than many expect, but ultimately, once again, Georgia pulls away late and gets the win to remain undefeated and to retain their number 1 ranking in the entire country. Kentucky will absolutely put up a fight, but Georgia's defense makes a couple big plays down their stretch. I think Kirby Smart rips his defense a new one after their mediocre performance last week against Auburn. They show up ready to play, bottle up Ray Davis, don't allow him to have a big day. Home field advantage playing a major role in this game as well. And Georgia escapes with a victory, remains undefeated. But credit to Kentucky. This team, they're not going away, and they're absolutely the real deal. So there you have it, guys. Georgia over Kentucky on Saturday afternoon. Leave your comments and prediction below. Let's get ready for another massive college football Saturday. But once again, as always, please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. Check out everything down in the description below, including those expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. Again, guaranteed winnings over there. 29-11 run, beating out over 80% of the national handicappers. You're not going to find those picks anywhere else. You're not going to find better picks anywhere else, especially for this price, especially for this length of a subscription. Go sign up for those picks today. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on The Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.